Welcome, everybody, to today's meeting. Today's meeting is a very special meeting in that it's the 20th anniversary of the Breakfast Club. The group was formed right after 9/11. We put it together back then to help the people that have lost their jobs due to the tragedy. And over the years, there's been countless reasons to keep it going. We went through all different stages of sourcing with outsourcing and strategic sourcing and the impacts on the job market. We went through financial and economic times of the country that affected the companies in the job market. We went through different layers of technology that impacted the way people search for jobs. When we started, there wasn't even things like Yahoo groups or Facebook or LinkedIn groups, like there are today. And our most recent addition, which was Meetup, to control meetings like this. So we have seen substantial changes in the 20 years. The principles that the group was founded upon, which was really examining the job search process and looking for ways to give people edges in it, have continued to be the bedrock of the group. The group was always put together with the focus of helping those that are in job search to the best of our ability. And, along the way, we have had many not only join during their search, but remain, loyal members for a long time and become volunteers that have helped, the membership even further. Um, it's been a significant journey. We're just shy of 3,800 members just on our meetup alone, which is a significant milestone. I was even looking at those stats last night. It's not just that 3,800 people have joined our meetup. There's been a lot that have joined, and unfortunately, once they found jobs, they've dropped off. We have members in almost all 50 states. So, a lot of our members, after they joined the Breakfast Club, they may have found employment opportunities or decided to relocate outside of New Jersey. And we've also had a significant number of our people, basically, I'll say, age out of the group, in that, a lot of them have made it to retirement. So it's been very interesting statistics. A number of years ago, we started, I think, probably about 2007, with the advent of digital technologies and digital transformation. And we've also seen a significant amount of our members change their profession or their professional focus due to digital transformation. So that's also been a very interesting journey to see people reskill and upskill and, apply themselves in different areas. As people have been in job search, we also saw a lot of them look at, their employment differently and identify their passion and come up with plan Bs for the next steps of their career. And we've also seen people, radically change their position to something that they're more passionate about, which seems to have been very successful for many, because then, they were aligned with performing activities all day for, their work that they really enjoyed more than what they had. I always find it interesting when I talk to people and I ask them what they went to school for. And, I find out that, they went for a totally different area, but as life circumstances had it, as they landed jobs or promotion activities came available or different opportunities to increase their salary or compensation, they chose to leave really what they thought they were going to focus on in order to maybe better their economic standing or help their family more. And, that happens over time. And then, when they get into a job search, they get a chance to stand up and reflect on, what they've been doing. And a lot of times they actually look in the mirror and say, how did I even wind up here? And then they recalibrate their professional life and choose to re-engage differently for their next step. So it's all a discovery process. I think one of the biggest things that during job search they have to deal with is the uncertainty. And that's one thing that, we've always tried in the Breakfast Club is to help people deal with that uncertainty, to try and bring more focus around it, to, give them the advice and the counsel to help them through, the hills and valleys that you go through in job search. There was a little write-up that I found this last week, and I think it has some really profound advice in its direction. So I'm going to share it with everybody. So it says, what's not meant for you will miss you. We all have plans. We all have ideas of what will make us happy. We construct it all in our mind. But what we really don't know is how we'll feel once we're in it. So maybe that dream job you've been feeling down about not getting was going to be a nightmare for you. Maybe that perfect person was only perfect on paper. Maybe that opportunity was only going to be a distraction from something that's trying to come into your awareness. Maybe it's all working out for you beautifully in ways you can't put into words, in perspectives that only become visible in retrospect. So don't force it all to happen the way you think it should. Don't end up somewhere that was trying to miss you simply because you were too intent on hustling your way into an ideal that might not even be good for you. Do your work, take inspired action, be open to it unfolding better than expected, and allow what's meant to miss you to skate right on by. So I think that this sums up very nicely, that uncertainty and dealing with it during job search. You really have to somehow listen to the universe and, not just try and come up with an ideal and, buy into it so deeply that, you get so upset. We've heard just in the opening remarks today when people were gathering, somebody who thought something was going to be a great match and it turned out not to be. And, it happens every day in job search. So, try and really go through the process. I know there's added constraints like the bills and finances and everything else and not wanting to deal with the uncertainty, but keep those channels open and listen to the different opportunities so that this way you get the one that's really meant for you. With that, David Sheffman and Jerry Payton both are part of our presentation committee. They do a lot of work in aligning, the different topics, the different presenters. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to turn the program over to them, and I'll let Jerry introduce our first speaker today.
Thank you, Frank. I appreciate that. Yeah, we have an excellent presentation for you today. In fact, it's an area that I think from personal awareness is going to help all of us. And each one of these gives us an angle to make us better in both our professional and personal lives here. And now I'm going to introduce our speaker. Lisa is the founder of Presence Intelligence, which is the ability to align who we are on the inside in a positive way with what you project on the outside. She is known for her acute understanding of the visible and invisible communications that impact personal and professional success. Excuse me. I now would like to introduce Lisa Mankowski. I'm sorry,
Good morning.
Lisa
That's
Manyoke.
okay. That's okay. You could, everybody mispronounces it anyway. Frank, they were really profound words, full of wisdom, but much easier said than done. It's fitting that I'm here today, and my birthday is actually 9/11, so I guess it's nice to be with you on your anniversary. And let me just preface our presentation by telling you that I know what it is like to have lots of responsibility and a career vacuum. I joked around about my ex-husband, but back in 2006, he took my kids to school, came home, put his key on the table, and then left. He saw an attorney 3 days later and plunked down a $5,000 retainer and sued for divorce. What I didn't know is that some of the steps he took to create a discrepancy between our salaries were significant and mind-boggling, but they gave him the leverage to sue me for enough alimony to cancel out child support, and he did. So I was left with a 6, 9, and a 10-year-old, a business and a household to run, and a whole lot of responsibility. Within that very short amount of time, the one client who pretty much drove my financial bus turned their services inward. So I had a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of stress and pits in my stomach for a long time trying to figure out, how do I keep up with life outside my career and no revenue? Now, that was a long time ago. I put my kids through college. I figured it out. But my message to you early on is, I know how it feels. So if any of you after this presentation just need a leg up or a compassionate ear or a few words of encouragement, I'm easy to find on the internet. David will give you my contact information, but please reach out. I will listen, and chances are we'll have a suggestion or here or there. Okay. Let's dig into presence intelligence and give you some maybe a new approach to seeking out that ideal position that you're in search of for your career. All right. Okay. Presence intelligence is actually my professional baby. It's something that has really originated after I did get divorced, because I learned so many things about tactics and strategies that have proven immeasurable in terms of career path. Now, if all of you are looking for a job or even an advancement in your career, chances are you've heard, get your resume together. Now, the truth is that is a tactic and a step that is necessary. However, a resume can get your foot in the door, but it cannot carry you across the threshold. And here's why. A resume is simply a list of tasks you say you've executed or experiences that you've had. But it's a list that in today's job market is filtered by applicant tracking systems of organizations. That type of software collects resumes and applications from hundreds of job seekers, and then it compares the resume to the job posting. It ranks top qualified candidates based upon keywords from the resume and knockout questions from the applications. Now, knockout questions are exclusionary criteria, words such as full-time or part-time, remote versus on-site, or willing to relocate or not. When the software catches a discrepancy between the resume and the application, it knocks those resumes out of the process before any interview can be had. Top qualified candidates, maybe the top 10, they'll have their resume reviewed by an HR team who will have their own checklist of criteria and requirements and preferences. Then the next top candidates, maybe the top 6, will get phone screening interviews. And then out of those screened, the next top candidates, maybe 4, will have their resumes forwarded to a team leader or a manager to be considered for an in-person interview. Out of the interviewed candidates, the top candidate, maybe more depending upon hiring circumstances, will get the job offer. In other words, there are a lot of screening hoops that you'll need to jump through in order to get eyeballs on your resume. It's a lot of work, and you're leaving your search to the mercy of data points that can ruin your chances for employment. So plan B, which is be a better you, in other words, refine who you are and what you're looking for so that you have a stronger chance to get the job of your dreams. When I ask people to describe someone who has a strong personal presence, who is unforgettable, they use words such as confident or poised or in command. They say that these people have a certain something about them that's hard to pinpoint but impossible to forget. And yet, even though presence really is seemingly invisible, it is really clear when it's there and painfully obvious when it is not. Now, I maintain that everybody has to master presence, and I mean everybody, no matter what your age is or where you are in life. Everybody has a presence, meaning you give information to the world by way of things that you can see, read, hear, or feel. Your presence can open doors to opportunity, or it can slam them shut. It can strengthen your relationships, or it can strangle them. It can make it easy to feel happy in your endeavors, or it can weigh you down and then infect your mood, which will in turn infect the mood of everybody around you because moods are catchy. Now, presence comes naturally to some people, or so it seems, but it's not always innate, and it doesn't have to be. You can develop a good, positive, compelling presence, and the first step is understanding yourself. There are two types of presence, tactical versus authentic. My favorite saying that I've coined is, a tyrant in a suit is simply a well-dressed tyrant. Playing the role of somebody is not the same as being that somebody. Tom Hanks, for example, gained and lost 50 pounds for his role in Castaway. That was a temporary stint. Robert De Niro paid a dentist to grind his teeth down when he played the role of a psychopath in the movie Cape Fear. These are tactical measures that could not go on indefinitely, or they'd be superbly stressful. Sustained tactical presence requires a lot of practice and commitment, and it can also be destructive. However, sometimes in the short term, it can be effective. For example, in order to get the best results in court, an attorney will often ask their client to dress in a certain way so as not to influence the jury one way or another. Financial crimes cases, for example, the attorney would ask the defendant to dress nice, but not too nice, put the heavy jewelry away, or a farmer to dress respectably, but not in a way that was counter to who they really were. Because when the tactics go too far, they can make you really uncomfortable and then behave in ways that are unnatural and create stressors. Authentic presence is much easier to sustain, although sometimes it's more difficult to access and to organize. There are factors that can run interference, such as parents and family members and other authority figures who shape who you become. Sometimes their influence is well-intended but oppressive, and you can lose yourself to their dominance. Other times, their directives, again, are well-intended, but they're not right for you. I know of a one gal who was a phenomenal cellist, but her parents were convinced that she'd never make a good living as a musician, so they insisted that she go to school for engineering. It took that kid a long time and a lot of soul searching and a lot of left and right turns to figure out that she really wanted to pursue cello. So her path eventually came her way, but not without a pretty concerted effort. In my case, my family always used to tell me that I marched to the beat of a different drum, and it never felt like a compliment. It really wasn't. But I finally figured out that my going to art school and then becoming an entrepreneur was actually the beat of a drum whose music I really liked. So I did it anyway and figured it out. And that really mattered most to me. And you know what? It did to other people as well in the long term. What also matters, though, is the speed of the process of connectivity. My colleague Judith Glazer, who passed away a couple of years ago, founded Conversational Intelligence, and she maintained that within 0.07 seconds and 10 feet, the process of connectivity begins. That means really quickly and really closely, someone is going to decide whether or not they are going to move toward you and engage or run for cover. There was a time when I would have said that this was a bunch of nonsense. For about 13 years, I trained in martial arts with my kids and fell short of just becoming a third-degree black belt. My teacher used to talk about energy and whatnot, and I used to tell him that it was a bunch of hokey pokey voodoo magic. So one time he said, "Lisa, come over here, stand up and put your hands up," as if I were playing patty cake. And I did so, and he said, "Stop talking." And he put his hands in the same position about an inch from mine and said nothing. And within seconds, I felt heat, and I mean heat. I could not believe that with strong focus, he could channel energy between our palms. And of course, he saw the look on my face and gave me a fresh grin and then smacked me on the back. So my point is, we emit energy. When we offer it to others, they will feel it fast. So I define presence intelligence as in knowing what you put out there, the awareness, understanding, and command of how you relate to, affect, and influence others in the moments you interact with them and after you part ways. Over the years, with a very lengthy career prior in graphic design and marketing and communication, I became fascinated with the energy and mechanics of presence. I studied neuroscience and behavior and assimilated what I learned into this new intelligence, which I've dubbed presence intelligence. And here's how it works. Again, it's the awareness, understanding, and command of how you relate to, affect, and influence others in the moments you interact with them and after you part ways. It's a really powerful way to capture attention and to hold it and to ultimately be remembered for something good, which is a great asset when you're looking to stand head and shoulders above others in a competitive job marketplace. When you have an ideal presence, what you want to happen when you engage with someone or walk into a room happens. In other words, your desires and intentions match how you're perceived and received by others in your midst. And by the way, if you don't know what happens when you walk into a room, you need to find out. If you don't like what goes on, you need to change something, even if it's the room you choose to enter. There is a sweet spot to make your personal presence easier to achieve. And first, you have to make it a priority to figure out who you are, as in what you want to be and do, what you're built to be and do, and what you're meant to be and do. That's desire, ability, and purpose. Life is a whole lot better when you fit your life and your life fits you. And that includes your choice of career and how you choose to execute it. A good way to begin a self-discovery process is an assessment. Now, I make the caveat that when it comes to assessments, I do not support all of them. Many of them are not good, and many of them offer significantly different recommendations if you score even a 1-point difference from one day to the next. So I often joke around and say with some assessments you're a dove and the next day you're a pigeon. A DISC assessment, however, is one that's been around for a long time and there's a lot of science behind it. It's a really excellent way to figure out if you're the same person who wakes up in the morning in the workplace or in the environment that you choose. And when there's a discrepancy between the two, then chances are you're in an environment that will offer stressors to you that can affect your performance or your morale and your overall joy in life, which will creep into every other facet of life anyway. Now, for example, I can tell you in my case, I'm trained at DISC, I can administer it. I am a high I, which means that I am very socially wired, and I'm also a high D, which means I will get things done. It's a great blend for a consultant that has made great sense to me over the years. But who I am is not who you are or who you may be in in the morning and at the workplace. So find out some clarity there And then you'll be able to better make career choices that are suited to you naturally, where you don't have to work that hard with tactical measures.
May I ask a question before you go forward on that?
Sure.
Okay. If you go back to the previous slide, one of the things that people have found in a DISC profile is that people can have a primary behavior, as you were saying, you were predominantly D&I, but usually under stress, it can possibly change. And when you go into an interview setting, you know, a lot of people find that stressful. So it may take them out of their normal behavior and they can actually operate differently during the interview. So what do you suggest in those circumstances?
Well, for example, if you're an individual who does not like confrontation, or is introverted, or not good with new circumstances, when you understand that about yourself, you then have the opportunity to practice measures to mitigate it. So for me, I can move into just about any social situation and punt. I can figure out what conversation to have. It's a very natural skill of mine, so I don't have any trouble in that way. That's why for entrepreneurial suits, it works well for me. But I know others who, when they get in the middle of an interview, lose all their vocabulary, they sweat, they get pasty mouth as if they've just had powder pumped through their entire circulatory system, and they fold. But with practice and answering the questions in advance, you can take advantage of what's called procedural memory, meaning I've practiced this so many times that I know what to say without thinking. Or you can even be transparent to tell your interviewer, I'm a little nervous. Any interviewer who's kind will understand that this is naturally a stressful situation. So hopefully you're going to go into a job environment where the people with whom you work understand that and get that. Some job professions don't require great speaking skills or articulation or authority. So finding a right fit for you will help you choose better, and understanding how you operate in these circumstances can help you to run some interference. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just trying to suggest that people should look at their DISC not only under normal circumstances, but under stress, so they understand if they change under stress, you know, that may be more indicative of them being in an interview situation so that they can adjust accordingly.
Exactly. And again, by practicing in advance, then you get a better chance to interview well. You know, every year I work with the Youth of the Year candidates in the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. So we get these kids together who are really green. I mean, they're going to be interviewed by a lot of executives, and many of these kids come from histories that are, wow, they're sad, and they didn't have a lot of opportunity. So when I tell you they are melting with discomfort, that is an understatement. But we mentor them and practice so that in stressful circumstances, what they need to say can roll out of their mouth with ease, and it works for adults as well. Okay.
The other thing that would be interesting is to look at different things that could be done, like getting a referral into the person who will be doing the interview, or, you know, coming in with a T letter, and seeing how different aspects like that could really affect the communication intelligence that you talked about, because the dynamics become somewhat different when you said rather than 0.07 seconds or 10 feet being the determining factor. When somebody comes in with a referral, it's almost like they're beginning with a positive impression that it's theirs to lose, you know, from what they do from that point forward.
Right.
Lisa, may I make a comment? I like you use the word authentic presence, and I want to focus on the word authentic. Once a year, I go to see my doctor for a physical. I walk in and said, Alex, how you doing? And I said, oh, I'm great. I'm happy camper. Then he opens my file and he looks and he starts smiling. He says, come here, let me show you this number. This number is high. I can tell you're telling me the truth. So the point is that physiologically, there is something, when you are really, really, really happy, that shows up physiologically. That's my point.
It does, yes, inside and outside. So absolutely. So it's much easier to be authentic. But remember, when we have histories of people who have influenced our choices, that's a lot of noise in background, and it can take real courage and persistence and objectivity to shut out the noise and follow what really suits us. We don't often choose what came before our freedom to choose. And as a result, it can get a little congested.
And the last point I'd like to make is around what paradigms come to the table. So when the two people meet between the interviewer and the interviewee, there's also many new dynamics. You know, with the advent of the millennials and millennials getting into management, if it's a boomer on the interviewee side and a millennial on the interviewer side, or there could be cultural differences, there could be male versus female within those cultures. You know, there's a lot of other dynamics. So how do you play those into this type of approach?
Well, LinkedIn makes it really easy to do a lot of due diligence prior. So you can look up reviews of an organization. Glassdoor and some of those other organizations have a lot of reviews that can either clue you into the company culture and sometimes to the individual with whom you'll meet. If you know in advance, look them up. If you see things that you don't like, well, then you have information. So you're interviewing an organization as much as they're interviewing you. And due diligence will help you to pick up on some clues that either are in alignment with what you're looking for or not.
The one thing that I would just suggest to everybody, you know, the advice is sound, but just shut off on your LinkedIn account the ability for the potential interviewer to see that you're looking at their profile, because without that, some people take it as an offense that you're checking them out before you come in for the interview.
All right, so why do you think that's a problem?
It's just their personal perception. Some of the people, you know, get upset. We had one person years ago, he was a longtime member, and we were going through play acting of what they do in an interview. And he was actually taking it to the point where he was printing out the potential interviewer's profile, bringing it to the interview, and then using it, pulling it out to have something to talk from. And we told him, you know, that is a major no-no, because he was using it almost to, you know, interview the interviewer. And, you know, some of the interviewers are a little hinky. If they see that the person was looking at their profile, for whatever reason, they get upset. So it happens in some percentage, so why not just avoid it? Shut off the ability that they see that you looked at it. You just come in as an anonymous user, and they never know that it was you that looked at their profile.
Okay, I think that's sound advice. You know, I would never consider that. And frankly, for me, if somebody was bothered by that, I wouldn't like that. I mean, I'm a big fan of transparency, but to maximize chances, yeah, you can have a second LinkedIn profile where you are an anonymous. You can just turn off, keep it to private search. All right, are we good with this?
Yes.
All right, let's move on. Again, my feeling on assessments is that they are helpful. However, I don't support all of them. I came up with my own. And this is the Presence Intelligence Alignment Inventory. This took years to birth, and I will tell you, it's like giving a very long birth. But it is an easy but substantive inventory, not an assessment of who you are and what you believe and feel about yourself. It highlights your strengths and your weaknesses so that you can learn what you need to optimize and what you need to improve so that you put your best self out there. When you show up more confidently and comfortable in your skin, that in turn makes others comfortable around you, which in turn increases the chance that they'll be drawn to you within that 0.07 seconds and 10 feet. The inventory is really a coaching tool. When I beta tested it over the years, I learned that people who took it did not really learn anything new because they were the ones answering the questions. However, it is a coaching tool. So when you do an inventory, it's used with a coach so that a coach can help guide you to ultimately align the best of who you are in each of those categories. If you're wearing a white shirt and you get a spot of ketchup on your shirt, people will look at that spot of ketchup. They will find it, even though your shirt is predominantly white. And so it is with all these aspects of your life. If you're a strong speaker and you wear a great suit, you write terrific emails, but when you get together with people, you spit when you talk or you don't have eye contact. Those other weaknesses can actually infect your strengths. So the goal of presence intelligence and this alignment inventory is a straight line across the 22s. If you're up there and you're in the optimization category, then you're in great shape. But if you fall really low into the negatives, then that would give a coach a really clear idea to say, we need to start here because this is dragging the rest of your score down. There was a gentleman with whom I worked who, marvelous performer in his workplace, IT, long history in the company, but at 52 years old, he hit his head on a weight bench at the gym and he had a stroke, which left him with a 30% deficit of strength on his left side. That guy retreated. He became a poor performer at the workplace and terribly reclusive and sad. So the task there was not to ignore the fact that he had this permanent condition, but to draw from his strengths to override it. So the Presence Intelligent Alignment Inventory, again, it's a great tool. I found it to be very effective to use with a coaching engagement.
So Lisa, I'm sorry, there's a question from Jim. It has to do with what we talked about a moment ago on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I've heard the exact opposite. How do you turn off that option on LinkedIn? And I guess it was to search anonymously. So
Right.
Oh, I don't know that I don't know that you can do it on your own. I've known people who have had two profiles where one is there's no picture or skeletal information and they use that for search purposes, whereas the other one is their public profile that recruiters and others can see. So they actually had two.
there are settings in LinkedIn, and they're available to all of us. Usually you click on your profile at the top of the screen, and then you'll have settings and privacy. And in there's a bunch of them where you can turn them on and off. So we're not going to have the opportunity to go through LinkedIn right now and figure out which one you turn on and off, but you can set your searching to kind of a privacy mode. Just be aware that when you do that, it also disables the ability of others to retrieve your profile when they're doing a LinkedIn search. So my suggestion would be search privately, make that setting change. When you're done searching in a private mode, turn that back off or on the other direction so that you're in a public mode. So when people do a search for people like you, then what happens is you can be found.
Okay, but David, I have a question. What if you search privately and then you turn it back on? Will the period of time in which you were searching now, will you be visible?
So when you search privately, it's kind of that to the outside world never happened. When you turn it back on, that's my understanding. And yeah, so that's the best we can cover in your topical presentation right now.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. All right, so back to presence intelligence. Sensory clues are very important to your audience and to you. Now, presence intelligence speaks to these sensory clues because it's the ability to know the best parts of who you are on the inside so that you can align them on the outside in a positive way. It steps up awareness and understanding of visible and invisible communication before it happens, while it's happening and after it's happening, so that you can regulate what you put out there. It also helps you figure out where you fit and where you can contribute, which feels good and does you good, and in turn feels good and does good for others. It is a highly sensory experience because visibles such as looks and actions and invisibles such as energy and vibe contribute information to your audience. And it's essential that that information be working positively on your behalf. Now, clothing does not make the man. It just makes the man look a certain way. How you dress and accessorize can make it easier to be seen by the people with whom you relate. It can also influence opinion. Remember the jury example. A jury would likely respond very differently to each of these men. Your voice, sensory, it's a natural instrument with its own qualities that cannot change, but you can control its volume, the words you choose, and how often you use it. You can even practice away an accent you don't like or craft one that you do. Always record your voice so that you know how you sound to others, and take a video of yourself too so you can see how you look when you speak. I need not say more here. Do your laundry, purge your wardrobe of clothes that are stained or sweaty, and practice good hygiene. This is basic, but I've seen many infractions in this zone, and err on the side of caution when it comes to perfume or cologne. I knew a gal who, she wore a certain perfume when she went to an interview, and she was in an elevator with a young lady who had just finished up chemo. This young lady's mom always used to spray this perfume when she was getting her chemo treatment because the environment smelled very clinical. But over time, this young lady aligned that perfume with throwing up after chemo. And when she was in the elevator with this woman, she threw up all over her shoes and her suit. So sometimes you don't know what might be going on with another individual in terms of strong sense. So just go easy on them. Handshakes, again, I still am marveling at the fact that some people just don't shake a hand well, because it's a really easy task to master. It's a very common way to introduce yourself in person. And in some cultures, just so long as you know that if they are not welcome, if you know that in advance, it's very helpful. I did one time go to a client. I had not been told that they were Orthodox Hasidic Jews. And when I went out to reach my hand to shake it, there was a man behind him shaking his head vehemently. Don't, because they don't do that with women. So anyway, a handshake contributes a lot of information about you. Wet is nervous. Wimpy could be insecurity. A crusher could mean overcompensating authority. Too short could be tentative. So practice your handshake. A firm, dry handshake that lasts about 5 seconds is ideal. Pump it 2 or 3 times up and down and then let go. Now here's a really good mantra that can give you a rudder for making choices that improve your personal presence. Look good, sound good, be good, and do good. But first you have to define good, because good is subjective. A tattooed, leather-vested, bearded guy who would likely raise an eyebrow if he entered a room of bankers in Brooks Brothers suits, but walk into a tattoo parlor and I suspect he'd be welcomed with open arms. That said, superb performance and comfortable confidence can override those raised eyebrows. There was a guy named John Asher who founded an engineering company, and he needed a software developer with a skill in what's called signal processing to support a Navy acoustic development program. This was a high priority job for the Navy, and the most promising candidate showed up in a baseball cap without a trimmed beard, wearing some t-shirt that featured a famous rapper who was really known for foul language. Now this guy was really comfortable in his own skin, and he got hired not because he was dressed appropriately, but because he was so confident and his ability was so extraordinary that it became irrelevant. Further, the culture in which he worked did not demand a specific wardrobe. It's okay to be bold when you don't care if you pay the price. or if you know you have exceptional leverage. But do be cognizant that your choice to be true to yourself can have consequences for better or worse. Ultimately, I maintain that doing so is in your best interest, but at times tactical choices are worthy of consideration. And just remember that good is subjective. So here are some best practices that can help you develop an ideal personal presence. First, identify what makes you tick and what doesn't. And only you know what makes your cheeks pink or what makes your heart beat fast. Is it art school? Is it traveling? Is it teaching? Whatever it is, make sure it puts fire in your belly. And if it doesn't, keep looking. Identify who makes you tick and who doesn't. Look far and wide for your allies and your companions. They will make it easier to choose. They need not be family either. In fact, I always remind people who don't fit into their family that there's the family you get and the one you choose. Go ahead and choose. It feels good to be liked and appreciated because of who you are and not in spite of who you are. And as soon as you know that somebody's in the way of you getting your way, then move them to the perimeter of your life as soon as you can. Make peace with things about you that you can't or won't change. I will never be tall and willowy. I'm 5'2". I'll never have a lush head of hair. I have short hair that's thin, and it's going to stay that way because that's how it looks best. But I do have a big smile, and that works for me. These are innate, and I am working with what I have. So unless you're planning for a nip and a tuck or plastic surgery, it's important to make peace with things about you that you can't or won't change, such as your height or facial features or your voice quality or your body structure. Think about Danny DeVito. That guy is really small, and he actually has a condition that makes it so. Never got in his way. He made peace with his height and became one of the most well-known successful actors in the industry. Strengthen to make good use of your natural assets and smile. Arthur Ashe said, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. A smile is a great way to attract the attention of someone else. It originates from a part of your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. No need to remember that, but believe it or not, when someone smiles back at you, it's a reflex. So if they don't, then they either didn't see you or they chose not to smile back.
It means something. And the fake smile is one of our most common nonverbal lies. Now, we're going to test your ability to spot a fake smile. Which of these smiles is fake? Think you got it? Well, we think you got it wrong. So, do you think you were able to pick out the fake smile? If you picked the one on the left, you're correct. Okay, let's try another round. Which smile is fake? Surprised? It's harder than you thought, right? If you didn't get these correct, you're not alone. We wanted to see if the average person could spot a fake smile. So we brought this game to the park.
That one's fake.
And found that people only get it right about half the time.
I think that one's real. It's really hard to tell. Yeah, I don't know.
Unless you know how smiles actually work. There's a term, okay? It's called the Duchenne smile. Duchenne smile means it's a real smile. A real smile involves the muscles around the eyes being a part of the smile.
Guillaume Duchenne was a French scientist who wanted to learn more about facial expressions. So he used electrical stimulation to create a fake smile. Then he compared it to a real one by telling his subject a joke. And the difference was striking. What he discovered is that a real smile causes the muscles around your eyes to contract, creating telltale crinkles. Now that you know the trick, let's see if you can pick out the fake smile. Which smile is real, the right or the left? The eyes are a dead giveaway, right? The smile on the left is genuine. Want to try another one? What do you think? See how the skin around the eyes scrunches up involuntarily? The left smile is real. Okay, one more, but it's a little trickier. Which smile is real, right or the left? Can you see how the skin around her eyes wrinkled up just a tiny bit more on the right? That's the real smile. It's not surprising that real and fake smiles activate two different parts of the brain. A real smile involves the areas of the brain related to emotions, but a fake smile activates the motor cortex. That's the part of your brain that controls voluntary movement. By the way, here's how we got our two sets of smiles. First, we asked our participants to give us their best fake smile. Then we brought in some heavy ammunition.
In other words, smile if you can, and if you're a smiler or if you're a grinner. But when you go to your happy place in your mind, or if you're most relaxed, the reality is that you will communicate that facially and others will pick up on those subtleties. Number 5, correct or eliminate looks, sounds, or actions that you don't serve you well. When you have choice, exercise it. That means correct poor grammar, improve enunciation and pronunciation. Spell check if you're writing letters. I have seen some horrific resumes that were littered with typos. That does not make a good impression at all. And back to the clothing, wear clothes that fit or flatter your style. Refine communications to accurately reflect who you are. The cloak of anonymity is what I regard as a very dangerous wardrobe. Some people have what I call email and text muscles. They put things in print that they would never say out loud. So never put in print what you will not say to someone's face or in front of a judge. I know some people who should never communicate via text or email. They are curt, they're dry, they're dismissive, or they forget that email is a dialogue that warrants a hello and a goodbye. Always include a greeting. Remember that some of your communication as you're looking for a job will be in print, so make it good. Become excellent or more excellent than you already are. Good performance can override deficits in other categories. So take Steve Jobs, for example. He is reputed to be cranky. We all have likely heard those stories. However, his performance and innovation talents became such a part of his persona that they overrode his lack of people skills. And he was known to have indisputable charisma because he was a master of eye contact. He commanded authority and leveraged excellence. Be nice to others, including yourself, always. In my experience, being kind to yourself and others has the greatest power to lessen the impact of your weaknesses. You are more likely to be forgiven deficits in performance or a routinely untucked shirt if you are a kind person. That doesn't guarantee that you're going to get the job you want. However, it can give you some latitude for error. Kindness always begets more of the same. And when you're kind to others, it comes back your way. Might even be through referral. So, be kind. Draw boundaries or end relationships with those who do not appreciate who you are. The moment your inner voice tells you that something with someone is amiss, you must heed that information. There was a woman who was a teacher of mine, and I did not like her. I could not put a finger on it why. Come to find out, I went into the place she worked and where she taught, and it turned out she had been arrested the prior day for child abuse. The mechanics of your intuition and your gut have real physiological ability, and they will detect when there's a problem. Chances are you've had an experience where you had a gut response to something and then you defied it only to prove that you should have listened. Well, your gut was right. Develop techniques to stay the course. A rudder keeps a boat heading in a certain direction. So when you find that sweet spot of what you want to do or built to do and are meant to do, then pull in the resources to keep you on track, because it's easy to get distracted by demands of the day or the responsibilities that need to be met. Hire a coach, choose an accountability partner, or make a vision board, which is a visual representation of your goals that can help keep you focused in that direction. Use tactical strategies that keep you heading in the way that feels best and delivers the best results. Now, there are certain chemicals that are operative in the presence experience. Here are some ways to help you recognize what's good for you so that you can make better choices to improve your personal presence, which includes regulating what you put out there to others. For example, oxytocin is the cuddle hormone that moms secrete when they're having babies. It's metabolized in about 5 or so hours. Cortisol, on the other hand, the stress hormone, is metabolized in about 26 hours. That's why it's important to keep stress at bay and at a minimum, because it has staying power. Adrenaline, fight, flight, freeze, appease. That's really at high levels when you're in an interview or stressful situation. It's what makes you sweat and breathe fast and accelerate your heartbeat. It gives you cotton mouth. Noradrenaline is like adrenaline, but without the rush. It increases energy and improves focus and blood flow to the muscles and away from non-essential activities such as digestion. So appeal to circumstances, conditions, clothing that will trip the connection and pleasure chemicals such as oxytocin and even dopamine, your reward center. Heed your body cues. If you get goosebumps or pink cheeks or a pit in your stomach, there's information for you. Listen to it. Your body knows. Konstantin von Economo discovered a unusually long neuron that goes from your brain to your gut. That's where gut reflex comes from, or intuition. Learn to trust your body cues because they're delivering information that can tell you to move forward or to disengage. Develop a mantra. Let's say you're going into an interview situation or you're feeling overly stressed. If you pick 3 or 4 words and then focus on a target, and this can be in your mind, then inhale 4 seconds, hold it for 4, exhale and then exhale for 4, and just hold an empty breath. Then you repeat these words. It is profoundly effective. There was a time when my oldest was playing ice hockey and the kids on his team were losing miserably. They were defeated before they even hit the ice. So I asked the coach if I could go into the locker room and speak with the kids. So I did, and we developed a mantra for the offense, for the defense, and the goalie. The goalie's was in my glove, the defense was out of my zone, and the offense was in the other net. Those kids went onto the ice with a few words in their mind and something that they could repeat in real time and breathing along with it. They won that game in a big way. And then I went into the locker room for the rest of the season. They either won or tied every time I did. It's remarkable. Mantras are profoundly effective. They're used in athletic and in other stressful situations to keep you focused on your target, your goal, and to shut out the noise that can run interference. If you're really nervous, in real time, you can do the 7-11 method, which is to breathe in 7 seconds and out 11, or breathe in 5 and out 7. This technique trips the parasympathetic nervous system in your belly. That's the system often called rest and digest. It's similar to after you eat turkey, you want to go to sleep. Now, fumble recovery, we spoke a little bit more about practicing techniques. The first time I delivered a speech on stage, it was live, it was being filmed, it was in front of a big audience. I got to tell you, I had practiced and knew everything word for word until I got on that stage. I went totally blank. So despite that, I couldn't retrieve my speech in that moment, I had a fumble prepared, which was, I told everybody, you know, the beautiful delight in a live presentation is that you get to see when a speaker forgets their speech, like right now. Having a fumble prepared in that moment when I got really nervous and went blank gave me a few minutes to reorganize and to pick up my train of thought and recover. So if you're in an interview and you think you're going to lose the answer to your question or how you've prepared, just be prepared with something that buys you a little bit of time. Now, name it to tame it is a very good way to calm your brain by naming the feelings that cause you distress. This term comes from Dan Siegel. Here's what he has to say.
There are studies that everybody should know about that I summarize with the phrase, name it to tame it. So if you're really agitated, you're frightened of being rejected again, or you're really upset with what happened, or you're angry or whatever, in Maria's right brain, I can tell you this, in addition to right and left, there's, now please excuse these incredibly simplistic statements, but there's an upstairs brain and a downstairs brain. Now, I'm fine with that for this parenting book, but believe me, my other foot is in science, and the scientists would see that and go, what? But the fact is, there's a cortical rim where a lot of this higher stuff goes on, and there's everything below the cortex. So if you take your thumb and put it in the middle of your fingers, put your hands over the top, give this a try. This would be in my brain like this, see? And so this would be the cortex where you do all your thinking and planning and all that kind of stuff. If you lift up your cortex, you have everything below the cortex, which we call the downstairs brain. That's reasonable. Downstairs is just a substitute for the word subcortical, which freaks parents out. So downstairs. And it's the upstairs brain is the cortex. Okay, so you lift up your upstairs brain, you go to your downstairs brain, that's the subcortex. It's the limbic area and it's the brainstem. These are very ancient circuits responsible for things like emotion and motivation and fight, flight, freeze reaction and your arousal states, whether you're awake or asleep, stuff like that. So what happens at that moment is, if we did a scan on your brain, we would say that your right amygdala and your limbic area and your downstairs brain is super active. I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. And studies show that if you have this kind of presence and of mind, I can get Maria's left brain to name feeling from the downstairs brain. And you can show that she will squirt soothing neurotransmitters down to her right limbic area, right downstairs brain, and calm it down.
Good information. A few final thoughts. Remember that you're showing up in person, but chances are you're being reviewed in print. So remember that what you put in print is subject to review and capture by somebody else. Justine Sacco is a well-known story. She was a PR professional who was on a plane, and she tweeted, "Going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white." By the time she landed her plane in Africa 7 hours later, there was a throng of photographers waiting there to capture how she would respond when she realized that her tweet had been circulated and gone viral throughout the world. Her friend tried to delete her account, but not quickly enough. This woman lost 3 years of her life, her career, her health for a period of time, all because of one reckless tweet. I tease my kids, I would tell them, whatever you put in print could ruin your race for mayor someday. People get screen captures of things, or they can excerpt bits and pieces of what you say that can help shape your presence. So make sure that whatever's in print is working on your behalf. Now, that includes social media. I say pause before you post. According to Career Builders, 70% of employers are searching social media profiles of their employee candidates. So you are certainly entitled to your opinions, your political positions, your positions about other controversial topics or whatever. You're entitled, of course, but while you're looking for a job, just understand that they are accessible by employers and consider whether or not they are working on your behalf. Now,
Oh, excuse me, Lisa.
yes.
So it's David. There's a question from Jim. Do you have other examples of fumble recoveries?
I remember I was being interviewed by Joetta Clark-Diggs. She's actually a very well-known Olympic track star. We were talking about personal presence for athletes. And I got to tell you, I'm well-versed on this topic, and I went totally blank. So I said to her, hey, listen, if you remember what I was going to say, why don't you tell me? Because I have no idea. Now, I can be funny, so that's my style. I just have a few quips that are at my fingertips. It really becomes a choice of what will buy you enough time to recover, or just being open and honest and saying, you know what, I'm so nervous that I actually forgot what I was going to say. An interviewer will likely expect that in these conditions, there will be some stress. And if you having to be on point and articulate or punt in the moment is part of the job description or part of the need that they have, well, you might not be a good fit. But that's just one example. You just have to find something that kind of levels the playing field a little bit for yourself and buys you a little bit of time. You could even excuse yourself and say, you know what, I need a drink of water or whatever.
There's also the flip side of that. So many people do so much prep for a interview that when they get a question that they're familiar with, they're so eager to provide the answer. Sometimes they jump into it so fast and it almost comes out like it was a rehearsed answer. You know,
Right.
even in that situation, take a moment to pause, collect yourself and deliver it more as conversation and a response rather than something that you've, rehearsed and, are so eager to share with the interviewer.
Yes, when I work with speakers for their personal presence, they all write out their speech, because the reality is most of the accomplished speakers that you've seen seem as though they're just rolling words right out of their mouth naturally. They're actually well practiced and they've scripted it. However, reading from your mind, meaning you've memorized jargon or words that you typically would not use in conversation, show. No one is looking for a rehearsed, jargon-filled answer. They're looking for who you are. So I caution you from too much memorization. You agree? All right.
Definitely.
Okay. The path of least resistance. That's the one that says, I'm going to do this for a while because I need income. If you have to do it, then do it. I mean, the reality is to say, I'll just keep on going until my bank account is empty and find a job that doesn't suit me. The reality is that will make life very difficult. So if you need a job, anything that's just a temporary step toward your career, it is okay to do that. Ideally, you want to get where you fit most in an organization or in a career path that fits you. But there are times when you have to depart from that. That is okay. Now, again, I told you about my situation when I was in 06. The reality is I didn't want to do some of the design and marketing that I was doing at the time. But I had 3 young children, a household, and bills to pay, and so I did what I needed to do. Sometimes the projects I took on were not really desirable, but they kept the lights on, and they were temporary measures that bought me time. So go ahead and do that if you have to. Write down your goals and share them with a friend. Dr. Gail Matthews of Dominican University conducted a study that said that by writing down your goals and committing to specific actions and then implementing accountability measures significantly increases your chances of achieving those goals. So write it down. What are you looking for? What kind of job are you looking for? What are the qualities about the organization you wish to work? What do you want to feel like when you're at that workday? Write them down, share them with a friend, and then talk about it. By reporting weekly to that, you will actually articulate what you've discovered within that week, and that will help to guide you in your future choices. And lastly, visualize your ideal. So there's this story, my neuroscience teacher used to tell us that he was teaching a class of about 25 people, and he asked them to visualize a yellow Jeep. And he took them through an exercise where they imagined how it felt to sit in the Jeep and how their hands felt on the steering wheel and to touch the rims of the tire. It was visual and tactile, but all in their mind. The following week, he said, now how many people saw a yellow Jeep? And 24 of the 25 people did. I thought this was a bunch of nonsense. So when I was training some years ago, I was committed to making sure that I could disprove him for whatever reason. And on the 6th of the 7th days, don't you think I see a yellow Jeep? There's something called the reticular activating system. That is the part of your brain that says, because I'm focusing on X, I'm shutting out Y and Z. Think about if you tried to pick a car, you look shopping for a new car, you suddenly start seeing that car on the road. That's because your brain is filtering out extraneous information and keeping you on a focused path. So by focusing on your ideals, you are likely to recognize opportunities that would otherwise pass you by because your focus was littered with other congestion. And lastly, nobody knows how to be you better than you. Nobody, not your parents, not your siblings, not your spouse, nobody. So in the great words of Dr. Seuss, today you are you, that is truer than true. There was no one alive who was youer than you. You're the best person who can figure out what you like, what you're able to do, and what you feel like you're really meant to do. It takes practice and commitment, a great support network, which like this one is absolutely fantastic, and persistence. So keep at it, and hopefully with focus, commitment, and the support, you will find the job that you reach. And that is presence intelligence. It is what you know about yourself so that you can most effectively align it with what you project on the outside, whether that's through speaking, writing, the way you interact with others. And I encourage you, as I said prior to talking, that when you have a question or if you need some support, please do reach out.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. And I did put also your contact information in chat for anyone who wants that. You can also find her on her website, lisamanyoke.com. But we do have plenty of time, so if there's any additional questions that you have for Lisa, now would be the time to do so. And you know, maybe even just unmute yourself. Be aware that you may talk over someone accidentally and wait your turn. But let's do that before we formally wrap up.
Lisa, it's John Sampson. You were talking at one point about having a coach, and I wondered what you think about having your significant other or spouse as your coach.
No.
I agree.
Your spouse wouldn't be as objective as somebody from the outside looking in. I mean, they'll have natural bias. So unless they're an extraordinary coach who's well practiced at not having any bias, I would recommend stepping outside of an intimate relationship for a coach.
Thank you.
You know, that reminds me a number of years ago when I had lost my job the first time, I called several people, including my mother. And not that I was crying to my mother, I just wanted her to stop calling me at the office. And so we began to talk it through, and she told me, you know, I've got the perfect job for you. You love to travel. You like to be on an airplane. You should be an air traffic controller. And I did not want to be an air traffic controller. And I tried to talk her out of doing that, but she was just pushing that. And that really goes to Lisa's point. You know, she was too close to me to be objective. And I then had to do the research and explain why I cannot be an air traffic controller. I was too old. It's like the military, you need to be younger. So I agree 101% with Lisa that you know, people that are closest to you care about you, want the best for you, but yeah, can't be as objective as you need.
Right. Now, I built my career around motherhood. I actually wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and wife. The wife didn't work out so well, but the motherhood did. So I mean, my family kept saying, you know, your grades are so good, you need to be a doctor. But the reality of going to medical school would have meant lengthy residencies and maybe being attached to a pager. I didn't want to do that, so I went to art school. Trust me when I tell you, that defiance, they weren't too happy with it because they thought I'd be living in a cardboard box at a curb somewhere. Now, you know, art school back in the 80s is when the computer came out, which made the career path quite respectable. But it took a lot of bucking the system with my parents to say, I don't want to be a doctor. I know I can, I don't want to. So that was when I joke around and say, you know, they said, oh, you march to the beat of a different drum, whatever that means. I like my drums music.
Yeah. And, you know, that goes to the importance also doing a good assessment, because the good assessment can tell you maybe what you're good at, but also what your interests truly are.
That's right. That's right. Now, I have one son who went to school and got a degree in 4.0 degree in popular music culture. And when he got out, he said, I don't want to perform on a stage anymore. Now, I could have said, but that's what you went to school for. You know, all that money was wasted. But if you're unhappy in your career path, or how you spend 5 of the 7 days of the week, you are going to bring that into your home and then affect the relationships. It's that domino effect. It's all cyclical. So I encourage finding career paths or jobs or opportunities that you really like. Even if you can do them, if you don't like to do them, there's a problem.
Lisa, compare DISC versus Myers-Briggs. What's your opinion?
Well, you know, there's a lot of pushback with Myers-Briggs in that they say a bunch of women sat around a table and came up with a bunch of combinations. I think Myers-Briggs is really complex. I've taken Myers-Briggs a few times, and with a 1-point differential, I get a different set of recommendations and results. So that's my gripe with some assessments is the ones that have a little bit of tiny fine print that say, not all of this may be relevant to you. That's like some ridiculous disclaimer that says, well, take what part of it works for you and whichever doesn't. Nothing short of a horoscope. So DISC, there's a lot of science behind it, and I have found that those who take it typically recognize that the results are sound. With Myers-Briggs, there are so many combinations that it's a little elusive. It's tough to understand. I prefer DISC. I think it's a simpler, more compelling model than Myers-Briggs.
There is a book, Be What You Are, which explains the 4 letters of the Myers-Briggs.
Mm-hmm. And what do you feel about it?
I'm 100% with you. I agree. I've taken both and so forth. I raised this because someone asked me yesterday, what test should I take? There is also another one called, I always have difficulty pronouncing it, Keirsey, K-E-I-R-S-E-Y, Keirsey. I don't know how to pronounce this. It's almost like an EQ approach. It takes into consideration emotions and feelings and not just tasks and skills.
Yeah, and my feeling, I think assessments that can draw attention to a strength or a weakness are great. They're tools, but make certain that you're not relying on that as a fixed diagnosis or assessment of who you are indefinitely. That's why in mine, I made a very specific distinction that it's not an assessment, it's an inventory. It's more important for me to catalog, what do I do best? What do I think? How do I feel about myself? What do I have to work with? Rather than have an automated system tell me you should do this or you should do that.
When people are asking me, should I take one of these assessments, I always say yes. And then I pause and say, I'll tell you why. Not because you need to find out who you are, like you said in your presentation. You know best who you are. But if you take such a test, it typically provides you a printout. And in that printout, there are keywords and sentences you can use on your LinkedIn profile, your resume. So that's the advantage of taking such a test.
Right.
I'd offer up this one because this comes from my true life experience. This happened to me. And there was a point in my career back around 1998. I was miserable, like capital letters, italicized. I was miserable. I had just finished my MBA. I was still, I thought, doing what I should be doing, and yet I just hated my job. And as I like to embellish the story a little bit, I had a couple glasses of wine. I locked myself in a room. I took a simple piece of paper and I drew a line literally down the middle. And on one side, I put the word pro, and on the other side, I put the word con. And I looked in the mirror and I said, George, what are you really good at? And George, what do you hate? What are you weak at? And again, I'm making the story a little shorter because I had like pro, con, like, dislike, strength, weakness. I had a whole bunch of variations of it. And the very first thing I wrote down, I do not want to be a project manager. The second I wrote that down, it was like an 8,000-pound rock was lifted from my shoulders because I looked back at what I was doing and I had become a project manager. And I said, the last thing that George Pace is a project manager. So I think even before you get to those tests, just taking that piece of paper and being brutally honest with yourself. Now, sometimes it can be an hour, it could be a day, whatever it is. Write it down and say, I really, really love doing this. And guess what? I really, really hate doing this. And I can guarantee if you don't like your job, you're going to have things in that hate category that you're doing. So that was a tool I use. When I mentor people, I give them that same advice because it's the simplest thing to do. You know you. What do you like to do? What don't you like to do?
Well, I told you that this Dr. Gail Matthews, she said, write it down. And I maintain that when you write something down, you give your thoughts and feelings a shape and a form. And that gives you power. And it appeals to your visual senses. You can see it. It doesn't become this ethereal thought that's, oh my gosh, is that right or wrong? I mean, it's there. It's there for you to assess. And you have permission to do it.
And that's why I don't like the test, because it comes back with a number. Like, I know I'm an extrovert. I don't need a test to tell me that I'm an extrovert. But even if I didn't know that and I get an extrovert, your next question is, well, what the hell do I do with it? So I think that's what happens with these tests is you get these wonderful numbers and then you're like, but what do I do with those numbers?
Right.
So to me, it's really it's always been about looking in the mirror and saying, who the hell are you?
Yeah, and just because you're extroverted or introverted doesn't mean that extroverted people should all be in sales or that introverted people should be holed up in an office doing research. To me, extroversion and introversion is interesting, but it is not definitive.
Correct.
So what, I say. That's why Myers-Briggs, most people boil Myers-Briggs down to introversion or extroversion. DISC, DISC is strong. It's a good guideline. It's a metric. And the thing that I came up with, there's numbers on it, but the whole point of it is not your score. It's how aligned are you in terms of feeling who I am inside is what I'm projecting or pursuing on the outside. Alignment is far more important to me than a score or a summary that tells you who you are. There's no way anybody else can know that.
The one place I would use Myers-Briggs is actually in the interview process, because you can ask very subtle questions of, can you tell me the composition of your staff? Are people outgoing? Are they not outgoing? So now you can start getting a feel for that. They always talk about figuring out culture. Well, you can use those metrics, numbers, whatever it is, to actually form interview questions that's going to give you a better sense as to the fit and feel of the position you're interviewing for. So that's how I would go about using it.
One of the biggest benefits I found from Myers-Briggs over the years is, as an individual that leads groups, you have different people in the group and they're diverse in their Myers-Briggs ratings. And from interacting with them, you could come very close to putting them into the different 16 personality types. And as a leader, when you interact with those people and you understand, which personality type they're slated towards, there's different ways to interact, to communicate with them. And as a leader, as you work with them, it's actually beneficial to get more optimized results if you take that into consideration in your interactions with them.
George, I want to say that I'm using your method of this line in the middle when I help people evaluate job offers. I tell them the same thing. Take a yellow pad, draw a line in the middle, and put on the left side those things that you like about the offer. Put on the right side those things you don't like in the offer. Tear the sheet out, put it on the side. Do it one more time with the same method, but now don't deal with the logical stuff. Talk from your gut. What is your gut feeling about? What is, again, not logic, gut feeling? What is what you like about this offer? And what is your gut telling you about what you don't like? Now that you have the 2 sheets of paper and 4 columns, look at both of them, prioritize, and the truth will surface.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely, Alex. I agree.
And your gut, there's so much current studies about brain. Your gut, they call it the gut brain. It actually informs the brain above your neck. So when you get that sensation in your system about whether it's tingles or unease or whatever, there's information that is traveling rapidly upward and can help you make a choice. And I have found in my own experience and in working with many others that your gut knows an awful lot of information. It responds quickly to a collection of sensory information that can help inform your future choices.
Lisa, why is it that women have more gut than men?
I was going to say because we're the finer gender, but that sounds really creepy. I'm kidding.
Also, Alex, make sure when you meet a woman and you say that she doesn't misinterpret what you're suggesting.
Exactly.
So I would caution you, Alex, don't talk to strange women.
And you know, Lisa, there is one other piece to this puzzle that, because you know, none of these things work in isolation.
Right.
And one of the other things that I find people get very hung up on, in a sense, is they've gotten themselves into, and I'm going to make this up, they get themselves into a financial swim lane. And that financial swim lane dictates a whole lot of stuff between, you know, mortgage, lifestyle, pick whatever you want in that.
Right.
And what happens is they look at that list and they say to themselves, well, boy, I'd love to be an X, even though I'm a Y. But X pays $10 an hour, Y pays $50 an hour, and Y is allowing me to do all these things that I like to do, even though I hate the job. So they can't get out of what they're doing because they've got that financial rock, or whatever you want to call it, that really clouds the decision that they should be making. So that's the other angle.
David, George's comment reminds you something? Playing trombone, that's a hymn?
Yeah, the discussion yesterday, yeah. I'm still waiting to see if you really play trombone.
The speaker yesterday, and I chimed in and I said, I like to play trombone, but I need to pay my bills. So what do I do? Do I go for the job that brings in money, or I do what I really love doing?
Sounds like you should only be playing trombone in your basement. So folks, as we wrap up, I just want to once again thank Lisa for becoming a friend of the Breakfast Club of New Jersey. And this was a terrific presentation, a lot of insightful information. So thank you so much. In a moment, we will end the meeting. Want to make a couple of announcements before I turn the meeting back over to Frank to wrap up. One is Breakfast Club will be here next month, starting our 21st year, and it'll be November 13th. Bill LaChance and I believe his partner Sean Lavison is going to come also. Key financial planning considerations for those in a career transition. This is not a financial planning discussion. This is not a wealth management discussion, but how to manage different expenses and the things that are coming up, ways to save money and optimize while you're through career transition. Bill is a good friend of the group and does a presentation like this every year. So that will be next month, Saturday, November 13th at 8 o'clock in the morning. In just a moment, I will end the recorded portion of the presentation once Frank wraps us up. But we're going to hang around the meeting room, just like we would if we were still at the Days Inn. And one day soon, we will be at the Days Inn. No, we don't yet know when, so just kind of hang out for a while. But we are still committed to present our meetings virtually each month and be a resource for job seekers. So, Frank, do you have a party?
David,
Yeah.
Just a plug for those that haven't done it. I've listened to Bill's conversation. Jerry, 4 years now, I guess he's been doing it. 3, 4, whatever it's been. Let's just say it's 4 years.
About 4 years, right?
Yeah, it's really good. And even if you're not in transition, it gives you things to think about. He talks about a wide range of things, from your 401k to the different health benefits that are available to you, to the different techniques. He's incredibly knowledgeable and does really share a lot in that hour. So if you've never seen him, and I'm sure there's new updates that, new legislation that he's aware of, I really do recommend it. He's quite good.
Yeah, it is a program of money-saving strategies in a career transition, not just, invest in your 401k. That's not what this program is for.
Actually, to add one thing is that the reason we've timed it was based in November, has to do with that's when the health decisions have to be made. So that's why he asked to be moved to November. So I just thought I'd mention that as well.
Right, assorted open enrollments are this time of year.
Precisely.
So Frank, any closing announcements as we wrap up?
I just wanted to thank everybody for being, good members of the group. Congratulations to everyone on our 20th anniversary. And I'm going to apply what we learned. I'm going to go to 7-Eleven. I'm going to repeat my mantra, win Powerball, and visualize what I'm going to do with my winning.
Well, one thing I kind of hope, Frank, is
Fantastic.
that once you win Powerball, you take part of your $500 million and just pay for the Breakfast Club so we don't pay the
No, somebody already won that, David. It's back down to it's back down the pocket change.
Yeah, but I always buy the winning ticket. They just pick the wrong numbers.
Yeah.
Hell, they want 6 numbers. I can't get 1.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, thank you very much. Thanks again to Lisa. This is I've been fortunate to get to see this presentation a few times. I just really enjoy it. I think it's very powerful. I'm glad you were all able to participate at our meeting this month. And so what we'll do now is wrap up the formality of the meeting, but we're hanging around the meeting room. So I'm going to keep the session open for a little while. We can hang around. Any of you are available to, please do so. But I am turning off the recording right now.